When we first start on a healing or an awakening path, we might think that we don't get triggered very often, but it's actually because we're unconscious to it, which is just the nature of it. And as we become more conscious, as we bring more awareness to what is happening in our internal world and start to notice the thoughts, then we start to see how often we're getting triggered. So it's actually a good sign if you're noticing that you're getting triggered. And it was always happening, it's just that you now have awareness of it. Then as you go along on the awakening path and you do a lot of healing work and a lot of releasing beliefs and going into the wounds, which are the triggers, are just wounds that are being held in the body and nervous system. When you do that work, you'll start to see that you get triggered less. And so it sort of goes on a bit of this journey, and it's actually a really great way to see how you're progressing with awakening. It's sometimes nice to have a pointer to see that things are progressing, because it can be a bit of an arduous and challenging journey at times. So in this video I'm going to talk about how I have worked with triggers, but like all of the processes I give, just take what works for you and make it your own. And then at the end I'll share a bit of a personal story about this as well. So if you're getting triggered, then there's more work to do. If you want to try and keep it as simple as possible, that's one way to look at it. And so if there's any trigger there at all, if you notice any, then there's more healing work to do, even if you've done it before. And I know that can be hard to hear because some of these wounds go so deep. If you think of things like the mother wound and the father wound, those particular wounds run very, very deep. There's a lot of layers to them, and so you may think, I've done that already, but if you're still getting triggered, it's showing you there's more layers to go. So once you just sort of accept that and just realize I've just got to keep going, then you can just keep working on it rather than sort of pushing against it. So the first thing I guess I should talk about is, what is a trigger? It is a button that's pushed on your wounds. And so it can happen through your internal world talking to itself, and the mind says something that can activate it, or the external world, so often in conversations with others, but it can really be absolutely anything that you see can trigger it, and it's going to be specific for your wounds. So something that would trigger another person might not trigger you, it's going to be specific for you. And it's never about the other person and what they said and what they did. It's never about that. If you're triggered, it's something for you to look at. It's something for you to heal. And so it's going to be something like a repressed emotion. It's going to be something that you believed that's not true. It's going to be a trauma, something that needs to be seen and healed and expressed, that's stuck in the system. And a lot of this is from childhood. And even if we had a relatively good childhood, we often didn't have parents that knew how to express emotions in a healthy way, or we didn't feel like it was safe to do so, or we felt like we couldn't do it at school or in the workplace or whatever. There's times in life where we feel as though we need to repress, and that might be appropriate for our culture, but it doesn't go anywhere. It gets stuck there, and so it's just going to be healed at a later stage. And so what the triggers do is just basically point to that there's a wound still operating there. There's more work to do. There's something for you to see here. And so they are actually a gift. They can be painful, of course, but ultimately they're showing you what's left to do, what's left to heal, and what's standing in the way from abiding awakening. So first of all, and this might sound a bit basic for some of you, but this is a general video. But noticing that you're getting triggered is the first step, because if you're not noticing that, then the rest of it you can't do. So it's just trying to bring lots of awareness to how you feel fine. So really noticing how you feel before you go into a situation, perhaps before you go into work or before you speak to someone or something like that. Check in. How am I feeling now? Then deal with that situation and notice if you feel different. See if you got triggered. See if something got activated there. And just bringing more and more awareness to the sort of situations that make you feel bad, that are activating something, just so you start to naturally and habitually have more awareness around your triggers. So that's the first step, is to notice that you're getting triggered, become more conscious of them in general. And then when you notice a trigger, so you don't need to know exactly what it was, but just say you had a conversation with someone and now you feel bad. When you have the opportunity, and so when it's appropriate, and it might be later on that night or whatever works for you, but when you have the opportunity to revisit it, then my second point is to go into the emotion of it. And so although the mind is used in this process as well, because they're connected, we want to try and access the raw emotion of the pain of the wound, and then the mind will give us information. So it's a bit of a balancing act. You can't really get it wrong, but just keep trying to go into the emotion itself and feeling into it, and then using the mind as well. And so we feel into the pain. So perhaps someone said, you look like you've put on a bit of weight. And so you have an issue with body image, and just you're self-conscious in that way. And so just notice it later on when you have a chance. You go into the pain of it. And so how does that feel, to feel that? And then this is a good chance, if there is some kind of emotion that wants to come out, then definitely take the opportunity to cry or get angry or whatever it is. And then we notice what the mind is telling us about it. So it might take us back to a memory in childhood. It might take us back to something a parent said to us. Perhaps your mother told you you were fat when you were a child. And so we go back, we might see this, and we try not to force it. It just sort of allow it to just arise, and it just basically comes out of the silence and comes into our awareness if we don't push too hard and don't try and focus too hard and think about it. We try and relax into it. But we can ask open questions like, when do I first remember feeling like this? And then just let that sit there and just see if something arises. So it's a bit of a balancing act between using the mind, going into the emotion. So it just takes a bit of practice to get this to work and get it to work best for you. But as long as we keep going into the emotion, and then we just are patient with it, and we don't force anything, and we don't have any expectations. Perhaps nothing, perhaps we won't see anything. But we just sit with it, and we just allow it to be presented to us if it is ready. And so perhaps we'll see that our mother said that we were fat as a child. And so that's a really good start, because then we're getting to see that it's got nothing to do with that person saying that to us. It's got everything to do with the wounds that we're carrying. So if you thought that you were too skinny, you wouldn't have been triggered by that comment. You might have found it to be a compliment. And so it's not about what is said or what the trigger is. It's always about what your wounds are. And that's why you always have to do the work if you're triggered. And so you go back to that time where your mother said that, and you go into it as deep as you can, and go, how did that make me feel that she said that to me? And perhaps, I'm just using an example, I felt rejected by her. I felt like I wasn't a part of the family. I felt like I was different to everyone else. And so we just want to keep going deeper and deeper into that feeling sense, and getting to these core wounds if we can. And how did that make me feel? To feel different, to feel like an outsider, to feel rejected by her. You know, perhaps it made me feel like I'm not worthy of being a part of this family. Oh, maybe that's this I'm unworthy core wound that I'm carrying. I don't feel like I'm worthy of her attention or her respect. And see how we're trying to get deeper and deeper. We want to get away from the kind of surface level and go right deep, deep, deep into the wounds, as deep as we can. We want to feel it. We want to let the emotions out. And so this is the biggest step in this process. And if this is all you do, this part up to here, that's going to make massive changes. And so you go as deep as you can, release as much as you can. Perhaps you journal it down, whatever works for you. And then what will happen is that you just go about your day again. If you get triggered again, you'll know there's more healing to do on that wound. And some of the wounds are massive. They're really like the onion, where you just got to keep going through the layers. And other things will be not as big, and you just needed to get that little bit of illumination of like, oh, that was when that person said that to me, that teacher said that to me when I was 8 years old or whatever, and then it kind of just pops and it's done. So some are going to be big and juicy, and other ones are going to be more easy to let go. The fourth step is shadow work. And so what we do unknowingly, unconsciously, is that we have these wounds operating in the system that we're often very unaware of. And we project them onto the outside world. And so in our dealings with other people, we're projecting that wound outwardly without realizing it. And so shadow work is about seeing where we're doing that and holding ourselves accountable for that, taking responsibility. And so it is difficult work, but it is necessary for awakening, to see everything that is hiding. And so once we're really deeply in the wound of this core wound of unworthiness in this example, we can see, where am I doing this to other people? Can I even see just one example? Even better, multiple examples of where I'm projecting this into the outside world. And so this, I think the best tip I can give for shadow work is to not take it too literally. So if the wound is, so say in that example, the trigger was that someone said you're overweight. So you can start there and see, where am I criticizing people for their weight? And often it is at that level, and it is that literal that you're doing that. So you can check that out. But if you go, I'm not doing that, that's not a part of this makeup here, then if you try and take it a bit more generally, then often you can pinpoint where you're projecting it. And so it might just be, where am I just judging or critiquing? And if you take that a bit more generally, then it's often we can see where we're doing it in our own way. So we might not do it about weight, but we might do it about other things. And then try and spot all the ways. Am I doing it with my partner? Am I judging my children? Am I judging in the workplace? Where are all the ways I'm judging? Am I judging myself? Am I judging awakening? It's often helpful to look at what we're then projecting onto awakening and onto the truth of reality as well, because we'll be projecting it onto everything. And so try and spot all the ways that you're projecting it onto the outside world. And then the last step is about making changes. So it's not enough to just see it. It's a very helpful step. All of the steps here with all the illumination and the letting go emotionally, and then seeing the shadow work, each step is deeper and more wonderful. But the ultimately we want to be letting go of dysfunctional behaviours. So it's not enough just to go, it's a wound, I'm just going to be judgmental because I was judged and this is my core wound of unworthiness and that's just the way it is. That's not enough either. So it's about letting go of dysfunctional, unhealthy behaviours. So once we've had the illumination, because before we didn't know we were doing it, and so that's fine. When it's unconscious to us, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. But once we do know, then it's time to act. It's time to make changes. It's time to apologise to people. And so we take what we've seen through doing the shadow work and then we make changes in our life. And so this might be something like going to your partner and saying, I can see that I've been judging you and I'm sorry, I actually didn't realise I was doing it. And it's this wound that I have running from childhood where my mum used to critique me about my weight. And so I can see this now that I'm doing this behaviour. And so I'm sorry that if I've hurt you, I really didn't know. But now I do know. And I'm hoping that you can help me to point out to me when I'm going unconscious again and doing this behaviour again. Can you point it out to me so that I know, so that I can heal it? So that could be a way that you can start to further break these wounds and also do the deep shadow work and also be more in alignment, live from truth, be more in alignment with truth.